So if you would, I guess just like introduce yourself, who you are. You can even say what your position is in GI, like just, name, all that.
Yep. So I'm John Dresser. I run marketing for GI Sportz, JT, Tipman, V-Force, all of the core brands. We are here at the ICPL. That is the mechanical, old school 10-man version of the NXL. So still the NXL guys running it, but we're playing the old school format that we played over 20 years ago now. When I first turned pro, this is what we played, 10-man on, it was before Hyperball back then and before Airball, but it was 10-man woods. Now we're playing, this is actually an ICPL event, but there's no woods here at Tiki's. We are playing on a hybrid field, we're playing on a Hyperball field, and we're playing on a Mounds field.
Where did your paintball journey start? What age? What's the story? What was your first time playing paintball like?
So my uncle played paintball before I did, but he was out on the West Coast and I lived in Tennessee. He played what I thought was competitive, but basically it was a rec ball team. They had jerseys, but back at the time, there really weren't paintball jerseys. They had their guys that would all show up, they'd pick a field in Southern California, all go out and play. When my older brother moved out to California, he played, told me about it, I was hooked. He came home from playing paintball with 2 PGPs that he had bought from the field. These were the old school pistols, they were the field rentals. We literally did what a lot of kids did, wandered around the neighborhood and shot stop signs. So after that, I wanted to play. I was dying to play. I was 15 at the time. When I turned 16, I could drive. My brother came and visited, and I went out with him and a whole group of like the college-age friends and went to go play for the first time. And it was exactly like paintball still is. They took everybody that hadn't played, put them on one side. Everybody that was experienced and put them on the other side. Grossly unfair. The only advantage we had back then is we were all young, a lot of us were fast, and we were playing stock class. So it was only 10 round tubes, 12 grams that you had to replace. And it turns out, because I played at that field for years, that day went down in legend as the team, these random kids beat up the old guys. At the time, I thought we were getting the crap kicked out of us because I had higher standards. I thought we would win, that we would do better, but I think we probably split games, so it was a lot of fun. But from the very first time, I literally shot one person the first day, I hung one flag, I ran around like an idiot, lost and confused like a lot of people do when they play, but I think hanging that flag was the first hook for me. That was the first time that I was like, not only do I want to do this, I want to do this a lot more.
So, and then as you progress, just playing as a kid, at what point did you know that this would become your life's work?
Oh, the goal was never for this to become a real job. In fact, I remember thinking very clearly in either high school or early college, last thing I want to do is be in my 40s working in paintball, because surely paintball is going to go away by then and it will be on its last dying breath. Instead, man, this is one of the best things ever to get off the couch. Digital has turned into exactly what I thought. I knew it would be this whole, like video games would be this whole new level. I thought interactive video games would be a big deal. That hasn't really happened. And honestly, this is the only way you can get this kind of exercise. You get off your couch. I am in my late 40s now and still love it. I can still play this because the gun's this huge equalizer.
Which it's fair to say that you're probably going to be pretty correct with your technology predictions in the sport, considering you created one of the largest forms.
So I didn't create PB Nation, but I was definitely a part of it for probably longer than anyone. And it was very cool, but again, it was also dated technology. One of the things about technology is that it's always evolving. It's always going forward. I got to be there for when film cameras were infinitely better than digital cameras, and when people were arguing that digital was never going to take over. Now that's straight up laughable. In paintball, we've evolved as well. We started with 12 grams, we started with 10 round tubes, then we figured out vertical, or we figured out gravity fed, then we figured out force fed. The guns got faster and faster, and then we actually had to have a correction. We slowed the guns down. If there's anything about life and paintball is things change. Enjoy it, embrace it a little bit. I loved being part of PB Nation. That was a very cool thing. It was one of the largest sports forums on the whole internet. But it didn't evolve. It had to evolve, and some of us knew it, but we weren't the money in charge of it, and we weren't the technology people in charge of it, and it was obvious. We'll see. A lot of people went to Facebook. Facebook now doesn't love paintball. People have gone to Instagram, TikTok. TikTok doesn't love paintball. So there are all these ways that we are figuring it out, and things change. As much as you love your Facebook group right now, there's no promises that it's there for good.
I mean, I think they just took down the largest paintball group in Facebook.
It happens.
Yeah.
And people can be sad and dwell on it. A lot of people, what I hear all the time is, well, the friends I started with don't play, so I don't play. But one of the best parts about paintball is you go to the field, you play, you hang out with those people. Those people will do all sorts of things for you. They will loan you a gun. They will loan you their last pod. They're there because it is one of the easiest ways I've ever seen that you can make new friends.
I mean, it's kind of, you could say you work with some of your best friends that you met through paintball now every day, right?
For sure. There was a long-running joke on Farside that whoever lived with me at the time got to play on the team. Because I had several roommates that became my roommate and then joined the team. I work with John Rathbun now, who's been the captain of Farside for years and years. I've played on it longer, but he has that mentality where he likes doing it. He's good at it. He's good at recruiting and finding guys. And we were dormant for years. We were a pro team in 2007, and then for 7 years, we didn't play. I played UWL, played other things, but Farside didn't play. And then I decided I should make a Farside jersey, that I would like a modern jersey with Farside on it, and was literally gonna just make one. And then reached out to some of my old friends who didn't play paintball anymore and said, hey, I'm gonna make a Farside jersey. Some guys continued to play paintball, but I hadn't played with them for years. And 20, 30 guys bought jerseys. And then immediately after, we're like, dude, we should play a tournament. I'm like, man, that wasn't the idea of this. But we got together and we played PSP 10-man and placed second or third. I think we lost the All-Americans. And then we went dormant for a couple more years. And then this mech thing started. And I played it in the UWL, and it was a lot of fun. And Lane Wright held a tournament down at Paintball Atlanta. And we had just gotten these Farside jerseys. We decided, hey, we'll go out and play it. We showed up. Guys didn't have working guns. Guys hadn't played for 5 years. Some guys hadn't played for 10 years. But it was like a reunion. It was one of the best plans we'd ever had, was to get guys that used to play together and get them to play again. And that's honestly one of the founding points of the ICPL here, is so many of these teams are old school teams where the guys weren't playing anymore, or weren't playing seriously, or they broke into different teams. And now it's just bringing that fun back together. I got a cough. If I ever don't answer a question, never feel bad about going back to that question.
You're fine.
Because I lose the thread real fast.
Yeah, I'm a squirrel too. I just
Yep.
go off. I think it's fun. It's so much fun that even as a cameraman, these have became my most favorite events to film since last year's Pittsburgh Open Classic. And I think a lot of that is actually just because of the vibe of the players. They're having fun. I mean, I love the NXL too, the nowadays X-Ball NXL. But that's a lot more cutthroat than this is, right? That's a lot more. We're clocked in. We're here to work.
We're here to win.
We're here to win. We're clean. We're dry. Out here, though, everybody's very well hydrated.
So it's one of the pro guys that plays with us was actually a Farside kid back in the day. He actually said, he's like, man, these are the events that I look forward to. Because I was telling him, you got to stay healthy because you got a big season coming up. And he's like, yeah, but these are the events. This is what I can't wait to play. Because it is fun. It is with your homies. It is with the guys that you don't get to see very often. We don't practice. We barely play events. But, and the teams evolve. We have 10 guys. We have more than 10 guys here on the field. One more try. We have more than 10 guys here, partially because we don't know who's going to back out at the last minute, partially because making plans months in advance for 10-man is real hard.
Or you don't know who's going to pull someone's thumb, you know?
Yeah. So like I said, one of the things I keep hearing is my friends don't play, or I stopped playing when this happened, or I moved and therefore, man, there's a place to play that you can find. There are people that you can find. There are ways to play that you can find. And not just that, but through paintball, I have met so many of the best friends I've ever had, so many incredible people. At this event, there are living legends walking around all over. Rocky Cagnoni's here. Chris Lasoy is here from Old School Avalanche.
Pretty sure, isn't your boss playing on Aftershock right now? Didn't I see Billy out there?
Billy Saransky is here. He was one of the best players, if not the best player in the world in their Aftershock's heyday. We've got current guys from Dynasty here, X Factor. It's all sorts of fun, and they're old school names. Farside's an old school name, but Cap Factory is, Brimstone Smoke. They're all these Aftershock. A lot of these
Misfits has old school players.
Yep. There's so many guys here. There are so many guys here that have played at the highest level and now are here playing for fun and literally giving tips and advice to the guys that they just played against of how to play these fields.
Do you think maybe the evolution of the mechanical gun has led to these events becoming a thing? You know, because
I was actually worried about the evolution of the mechanical gun hurting these events, because the EMEC and some of the modern, the Shocker, some of the modern mechanical guns work very, very well. One of the things that in the old school mech days is not all the guns worked every time. It wasn't uncommon for a gun to go down. It was definitely uncommon for a gun to keep a high rate of fire consistently. So it was often, there were breaks in a lane, there was times where a spot wasn't being looked at, there was a guy monkeying with something. And so I worried about that guns that shot this fast and this consistent would suck some of the fun out, and it honestly just hasn't.
I mean, yeah, because there's some guys that can easily shoot a CVO or a CS2 or a, you know, you get an EMEC from Simon and Inception, and that's a 14, 15 ball a second gun with the right finger.
For a moment, but it's hard to keep that rate of fire, and it's hard to keep that lane as consistent as when we played with 15 balls a second ramp. It is not the same as much as those peaks can go up.
So, being the head of marketing for the largest company in paintball, I think it's fair to say you probably have a good grip on what reality is in paintball, because you see it from both sides, as a player and from the hard analytics, right? Like, not what we wish for, but what really works.
So one of the neat parts about being on the marketing side in paintball is that 90% of paintball players are the once every couple months, own a tipman, have a couple friends with a tipman, maybe some of them even don't play at a real field, but they're still having the same kind of fun. And it took me a long time as a player to realize that paintball is what you make out of it. That some guys, they love the teching. Some guys, they love the gear. Some guys love collecting jerseys. Some guys love the headbands. Some guys love just playing a certain kind. And now it's mag-fed. It could be pump. It could be pistols. It could be space guns. It could be mechanical guns. It could be playing on ramp. It could be uncapped semi. All of those are available now. You have so many different options of how to play that it's amazing. If there's a part of paintball that you're like, you know what, I don't like this as much, or this has gotten stale to me, X-Ball got stale to me. There's no way around it. And in 2007, I felt like I had played. And in 2007, it felt like I had seen those fields before. I'd played that field before. And when Farside broke up, it was hard for me to go join another team because I felt like I'd seen it and done it already. But then I moved, I played pump, started playing different things. I played mechanical, I played UWL. The most terrifying paintball event of my life was playing 10-man mechanical out in Las Vegas against former Dynasty players with vicious players who a lot of them had never even played in the woods before. And worse yet, the UWL rules at the time, I had to play with a pump gun. So I definitely felt like I brought a knife to a gunfight.
Well, because in UWL, I think there's a lot of viewers that have no idea what that is. If I remember correctly, like, you had X amount of players had to have a pump, X amount of players had to have this gun. Like, it was almost set out like an armory, right? Like, everybody had a position and the gun to match it.
Not everybody. There was one guy that got to leave a couple seconds early, and they called that the scout. And one guy from each team. There was towards the center of the field that was an objective to bring back. there was one guy that had to play with a pump. There was one guy that could have an unlimited rate of fire with ramp, and then there was everybody else had to play, I think, at 10-ball semi-auto.
Okay.
So, but after, and all those rules seem like a lot, but the reality is it was 10-man. And that's how we got to where we are now is those rules, those funny rules kind of went away, and we went back to old school 10-man, 2 flags.
How'd you end up as the unlucky guy with the pump?
That's how I got included on a pro team, is that I didn't play pro anymore. I thought I was old. They probably thought I was old. And I'd won some pump tournaments playing in the NPPL with local St. Louis guys and a friend that's a pro BMXer and his brother. And so we had a hodgepodge pump team that didn't really practice, but we'd won a couple pump events. So I was probably the only pump guy they knew. But it was cool because it was great to see this younger level, like Vicious had just turned pro. They were coming into their own. I knew Greg Pauly because I played on the very first AC team briefly, and I'd actually played on the very first Diesel team when we won, when I guested with them and we won Commander's Cup 7-man on the most unfair D2 team you've ever seen. And I think every single player on the team later went pro.
So it was fair at the time, but it just
It was
stacked
legal.
talent.
It was legal. It was absolutely unfair. Some friends came over from Europe and watched and went home and said, that is a legitimate pro team here in Europe, and they are playing D2 over there.
I mean, there has to be a reason why the European NXL said no, American pro teams can't come over, right?
And I don't blame them, but I think, I'm mentally going through guys that were on that team, but 2 or 3 guys went to play for Avalanche. 2 guys played for Dynasty later. In fact, when we beat Dynasty our very first game, and Oliver and at least one other guy came and watched the rest of our games and went and picked up Tilljack not too long after. So it was, like I said, but that's part of paintball. Part of paintball is getting to play with people that, these are guys I didn't really know, but had an opportunity, went and played with them, had a great time. UWL, same thing. It was guys I didn't really know, but had an opportunity, went and played with them, had a great time. If I can say anything if you have an opportunity to try it, try it. It's, paintball has definitely changed my life. One of the ways is got to guest on a team for Skyball. The very first time we played inside what's now the Rogers Center, at the time it was called the Sky Dome up in Canada. It was one of the largest indoor-outdoor sports facilities in the world. We played paintball in there for 2 days. It was unbelievable. But the team I played with at the time couldn't play. And so I guested with a team that was all randoms. And that's how I met Farside. Played well with that. Farside asked me to come play with them more. And I've played with them pretty much ever since.
So who started Farside?
Farside was started by a straight-up visionary named Forrest Brown. Forrest was long hair, long beard, looked like hippie or a Santa Claus, a Vietnam veteran who flew helicopters, but had this idea for a world-class paintball facility. And he built it. It was a park called CPX, Challenge Park Extreme. It had buildings, curbs, cars, houses. It was incredible. It lived for a long time up in Chicago and was a Chicago staple, and that's what started Living Legends, was CPX. But Forrest also wanted a car in the race, and that car in the race was Farside. He wanted to have a tournament team that was competitive because in Chicago, the best tournament team in the world at times was Aftershock. And Forrest thought he had a better field than them, so he wanted to have a team that was competitive with them. And we were very rarely as good as Aftershock, but it was a lot of fun, and we had lots of good battles with Shock over the years.
I would say there's probably a pretty strong Rennick and Forrest rivalry.
There was beyond a strong Rennick and Forrest rivalry. Like, I don't think Rennick talked to me in more than monosyllables until I was working for PB Nation and did something to help promote his field. And he came up to me afterwards and just said, thank you. He was like, that was very cool of you to include us in this. And I think that's when he realized that as much as I loved Forrest, I like paintball more. Forrest was the man. I owe him so much because he got me my first paintball job up in Chicago, or he at least told me to go interview for it. He allowed me to go play professionally all over the country, and then that has led to other opportunities, and it's been led to a lot of the fun that I've had.
So you could be my Forrest. I mean, you gave me the first big job that led me to my next big opportunity. So
honestly, you've got all the potential in the world. I love what you're doing here. I love that you're working with Lone Wolf, because I was a big fan of when the Lone Wolf guys started, because at the time PB Nation's channel was growing leaps and bounds. YouTube was the thing to catch. And I noticed when Lone Wolf started out and started making videos, and talked to Joe and Tony early and just told them, congratulations, you're doing what very few people are doing at that point in time, which was you're brave enough to get in front of a camera, you're brave enough to actually try. A friend of mine has a saying that when you go to a tryout, the most important part is that you try. It applies to life too. Try it. There's lots of things that we're not good at, that we haven't done yet. Everybody's an amateur at most things in life. Go try it.
Everybody sucks until they do it about 1,000 times.
And some of those people continue to suck, but if it's fun. And I think of paintball like that. Lots of us aren't that great, or aren't that great anymore, or aren't where we used to be, but we're getting to do it and have fun, and it's one of the beauties of 10-man. You can definitely hide a little bit more. You definitely don't have, there's definitely room for lots of different body shapes, body sizes, and abilities.
And I can resonate with that even as a media guy, because for me, I love just X-Ball and XL, but if I only film those 5 events and I don't film ICPL or 10-man or Invasion of Normandy, like, I love paintball.
When you started, I told you that some of the neatest things you'll film is going to be not the X-Ball stuff.
You did not lie.
And you didn't believe me, because you're like, no, the X-Ball, that's what I'm about. It's competitive. It's the guys I know. They're my boys. But this, you get to see stuff that you don't ever get to see. You get to see beautiful pink paint blowing people up. You get to see somebody's going to shoot somebody else here until they get tired of shooting them. Somebody's going to try and cheat their ass off and pay the toll. There is all sorts of fun. There is all sorts of different, you don't get to see the paint breaking on bunkers in the NXL. You don't get to see guys going over the top of mounds. You don't get to see, when you play an X-Ball spot, a lot of times you have 5 or 6 or 10 different things you can do, right? Come out left high, come out left low. Maybe your job's to hold a lane, so you don't get to do anything else for that moment. But in this, man, almost every position has all sorts of ways that they can try and go forward, all sorts of ways that they can try and go back, all sorts of ways they can try and go win the game single-handedly.
I've also found my favorite bunker call in classic paintball.
Uh-oh.
Crack pipe.
Crack pipe. The crack pipe is from the very first hyperball field. From the very first hyperball field up in Chicago, there was 2 bunkers like this, and some, again, visionary, looked at that and went, that's a crack pipe.
I feel like that's like Andy Horvath's like favorite call. Like, I see him on the field and he's just yelling it as much as he can.
I give, the first person I ever heard yell that was Mike Bruno, so I give him credit. I'm not saying he invented it, but there's a chance.
There is. So, like, are you at all, you said you kind of thought as you get older, paintball would go away and you'd no way be where you are, because, it's going to be a fad even as yourself, So going from that 15-year-old with that PGP pistol to seeing the options that there are in paintball today, the evolution of it, the genres, the branch out. Could you have ever pictured a mag-fed paintball gun?
I thought the evolution of paintball was going to be towards mag-fed, because the first thing people see when they see a paintball gun is, what's the big thing on top? Every time. Why does, I shoot real steel. Lots of us shoot real steel. But the neat part of paintball is you get to shoot at your friends, you get to get shot at. There is that adrenaline of when you're getting shot at is probably greater than anything else that I've gotten to do through extreme sports, and it's part of the fun. That hunting someone, not knowing where people are, and you get, the beauty of paintball is you get it through everything that you play. That you don't have to play a certain kind of paintball. For a long time, I played airball. That's what we were competitive about. So it was fun when I joined PB Nation I got to play some scenarios. I told them the truth. This isn't really my bag. This isn't really what I do. And come out, have fun, do it, meet some of the other volunteers on the site, the other moderators. All right. Well, after a little bit, I was like, man, I can go get an old autococker and do this. I can play at a disadvantage. I can get at a pump and then play at a disadvantage and play this. But I was playing at Sherwood Forest up in Indiana. They have these amazing castles and all sorts of crazy fields. And I had my autococker,
I don't know if I've ever seen so many railroad ties in one place.
It's unbelievable. Literally, he has tens of thousands of railroad ties all building these castles. And I was in the middle of this game, and I hear these two super fast guns near where I am. And I'm walking down a slick surface, so I'm sliding in my cleats. And I'm getting close and realize I'm getting to a doorway where those two fast guns are, but they're shooting out, not in. And all they have to do is look inside, and I'm toasted. And it's an autococker, and so I watch the first ball roll out of the barrel and fall down and go doop, doop, and bounce down. And so I'm like, okay, now the first shot's gonna be a blank. So I have to cycle the gun once, and then I have to shoot left and right and get both these guys, and then my cleat started slipping, and I'm just sliding down it, getting closer. And right in that moment, I realized, I don't know who the general is for this scenario. I don't know what any of the objectives are. I'm not even sure what team I'm on unless I look down on my armband. But I'm having an amazing amount of fun right at this moment. And it's my secret to life. Have fun in those moments.
It's almost like the website, trypaintball.com. Like, just try it, right? Like,
just try it. And it's that for a reason. With PB Nation, we had just a bus that said play paintball on the side. With GI Sports, we have try paintball if you're looking to find a paintball field, because that's part of it. Try it. There's some part of paintball that will appeal to you. There's some part of paintball that maybe you'll evolve into next. When I was a kid, I never wanted somebody else's jersey. I never wanted a jersey that didn't have my name on it. Even the whole time I played pro, never traded jerseys, never did anything, sold them when I sold guns. Now, that's one of my favorite parts, is collecting these old legendary players' jerseys.
You probably arguably have the largest jersey collection in the world.
I don't know about that, but I have the ones I want.
You're in the top 10 at least.
Maybe.
I bet your wife would argue you have too many.
My wife is very sweet about it. I actually bought a paintball gun over Christmas, and when it arrived, she was like, oh, it was green, and don't own any other green guns that I can think, or don't own mini green guns. And she was like, oh, what's that? It's like, who's that for? I was like, this one's actually for me. And her comment was very classic. She's like, don't you own them all? No, but I own the ones I want for the most part. I own some neat guns that are pieces of history. I own Lasoya's first Intimidator, like the first Lasoya Intimidator. That was Chris's. I have a couple of the Predator autocockers from the actual team, the Predators.
Which is like a UK pro team, right?
Yep.
That just is phenomenal over there.
Yep. I have a couple of Aftershocks guns. I have one of Dave Bain's old Mac Dev guns. So I've got some neat pro-owned like pieces of history, because I'm a big fan of paintball history.
So do you think maybe as you, I don't want to say the age of retirement, because I don't think someone like you is ever going to retire from life, right? Like, I know you pretty well, and you seem to like just be busy.
I'm definitely busy. I definitely enjoy it. I definitely, like I said, there's so many parts of paintball that I've discovered after I played for 20 years.
But as maybe you, down the road, say you decide you don't want to be the head of marketing anymore for GI, would you ever consider maybe becoming like the head of historian for paintball, like starting a really recognized, I mean, I think Iconic's doing a good job of it, and I know there's a Paintball Hall of Fame, but I mean, we could use more hats in the game, and I can't think of too many people who probably have the knowledge in their head.
So with the Paintball Hall of Fame, I definitely help them, and I'm a big fan of what they're doing. With Iconic, definitely talk to Quinn, and I'm a huge fan of what he's doing. I enjoy, like I said, so many different parts, and it's funny, every event that I go to, somebody comes up with some history question, some piece of trivia, and I know a chunk, but what I know is very specialized to a couple of years where I paid a lot of attention, and like I said, that was the era. A friend went to a paintball tournament, came back, and he knew pro players' names. That had never occurred to me. Like, I knew a couple teams, but it never occurred to me who one of the best guys on Aftershock was Danny Love, and that he was also one of the best autococker techs the world had ever seen. It's another gun I own, is I own one of Danny's old personal autocockers from his tournament days. It never occurred to me that Richie Malachevsky was one of the best players in the world, and Billy Saransky was one of the best players in the world, but played very differently in how they approached it. When I realized that these guys were human beings that had real interests and specialties in paintball, it blew my mind. And it was so much fun to go to these tournaments for the first time and watch these guys play, and just watch how much more aggressively they approach the game.
Which could be, it leads me to my next question is like, how do you feel watching the evolution of the game style? Because some of the guys you talk about, we could describe them as smash mouth paintball players, right?
For sure.
Like when we talk about Aftershock, I think of the term smash mouth paintball.
Yep.
Shove it down your throat.
So we played Aftershock, and one of the times we played them and beat them in the staging, in the huddle, right before we played them, the team captain at the time, Joe Fortin, who ran Extreme, but he played briefly on Farside, and he's like, it's Aftershock. They're gonna come fast, they're gonna come hard, they're gonna come stupid. Pay attention, don't get shaken. Teams lose against Aftershock because Aftershock rattles them. And man, today's modern player is a better gunfighter than anybody ever was, is a better laner, but those old guys are still here. Some of those Aftershock guys are here and still able to play at this because they think in a different way. One of the things that X-Ball has taken away is there are less options, there are less ways to play it, there's less creativity, and these are some of the most creative guys ever to play paintball.
And that was what I was leading to. How do you feel about, let's talk tournament paintball, airball, going from that shove it down your throat to the hold zones, lanes, very X's and O's, right? Like schoolyard bullshit isn't going to win you tournaments. It will in D4 and D5.
Yep.
But when we get to the pros and it's Dynasty versus Impact,
it is make less mistakes.
Makes less mistakes, and who can adjust on the fly the fastest to what the other team's doing.
So modern tournament paintball is definitely more controlled, and there are more zones, and it is more do your job, because it's the number of guys on the field, which is usually 5 in this modern pro era. It is those 5 guys all have a job, do your job. And they're disciplined. The old school guys were not disciplined like that. So it's very cool to be able to watch and see even the low scoring games, to just see how paintball has evolved in that respect. And it hurts my heart a little bit because it's less exciting sometimes. But other times, it's so much fun. This last Dynasty run of them winning World Cup, unbelievably fun. It was great watching those guys just on a true tear at an age where most people would have thought they'd aged out. But unbelievable.
Speaking of Dynasty and all that entails, before you sat down here, I had a few minutes to talk to Mark Johnson. How do you feel about watching these paintball coming in with big money now for players, right? Like Mark Johnson grabs Dalton, and then Bart's like, no, I'll give Dalton double to take him. And then it's all like, did you ever think that would come about, these salaries?
Oh no, it never occurred to me. Like as a kid playing paintball, just trying to play as much paintball as possible, that was the goal. It was never about trying to get paid or anything for it. It's great, but there are very few players that can play at that level, that can command that kind of salary. So that's neat. I love it for them. That's good that they can dedicate their life to paintball like that. For the most part, as part of GI, I'm rooting against the super teams because Bart with Impact and Heat and Randy, they're buying most of the players, and so it's great watching Dynasty win without having all those paid for players. Love that. So it's interesting to me. It's a love-hate relationship with it.
I mean, now as GI, you could argue that you have a super team, right? Like one of your owners, Mark Johnson, AC Diesel, the AC Empire. I mean,
we will see. It is at this point, it's unproven.
Right.
They haven't stepped on the field yet. Do I honestly believe that they have a shot of winning events this year? 100%. Do I think that they went from being a mid-level team to being one of the biggest threats in the league? I would love to see it. And that's one of the things that makes me excited about pro paintball this newest year. Some of my favorite pro paintball years were the champs versus challengers, or champs and challengers, because every game mattered. Now it's fun because there's been a shakeup once again, that we get to see J-Rab, we get to see Mouse, we get to see hopefully take the field on the same line as Mark Johnson. I can't wait to see it. Mark's neat because he's an owner that still plays. A lot of people don't know this, but when Impact started, Bart played. He played with his kids a lot. He played all the way until they went pro, and still played some. So it's very cool to see an owner that is still so hands-on, that still wants to play at this level, that still is interested in it, Forrest, when I joined Farside, Forrest played. He was older, bigger guy. I hate to look up how old he was and see how old I am now, but I might have to figure that out. But at the same time, he wasn't shy, loved playing, enjoyed it, talked trash with everybody else, got heated about things, wasn't shy about playing.
I think that's why filming Alex Martinez also is one of my favorite guys to film, because he's the oldest guy in the league in the professional division, but he started his team with his boy and his friends. Now his son quit playing, but the friends wanted to keep playing, so he's like, well, let's run until the wheels go off.
Alex Martinez is the man. X Factor is one of the best teams ever to play, and they're another team that's a huge threat for this coming year. So like I said, I'm just excited to see how things shake out. All of it doesn't matter. It's all on paper. It's all how it plays out. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I thought that I wouldn't be this interested in watching paintball and playing paintball at this age, but you surprise yourself.
So final question before we let you go, as you surprise you're back interested in paintball. What do you see as the next?
Make no mistake, since the very first time I played, I have basically played at least once a month, if not every weekend a month since I started.
But you're surprised to be playing competitively again.
I'm very surprised in my old age to be still playing competitively and still care and still enjoy it this much.
So with that, what do you think is, one, do you think the NXL X-Ball is the final evolution of tournament speedball? And if not, what do you think might be the next evolution in it to continue to grow the sport, to bring older players back in, or to keep players in longer, or to help televise it better? Because, I mean, ultimately that's the biggest thing. Everybody wants to get more eyes on paintball.
So I don't think the current version of the NXL or any version we've ever seen of paintball is its final form. One of the best parts of paintball and life in general is it evolves. It changes. I can't tell you what the next thing is, but I can tell you some of the most exciting moments in paintball included penalty boxes, included champs and challengers, included things that we don't have anymore. So maybe we'll go back to some of those things. Maybe we'll go to less guys on the field. Maybe we will adjust the rate of fire again. There's all sorts of things, but that's the beauty, is anybody can do any of those things. You can go start a league at your local field or just go play paintball differently. Hey, we've got a field layout that works well for this number of guys playing at this rate of fire, that's gonna, for the guys that'll show up today. Have fun, enjoy it. A lot of the guys that play, the Harrison Fries of the world, are still gonna be good at that. And so it'll be fun to watch. It'll be fun to see it evolve and change. There'll be some form of paintball that Harrison's not good at. Let's find out what it is. Let's keep changing it. Let's keep mixing it up. Paintball is, by itself, when I started playing, it wasn't really about the gun, because the guns were so simplistic. A lot of people forget now and they try and make paintball about the gun. Paintball's about us playing and finding ways to have fun. One of the best things I saw in paintball, when it was done safely, was people doing the spin the bottle game, and whoever the bottle landed on got to pick up the gun and shoot anybody that hadn't run away fast enough.
Yeah.
Genius, if you're doing it safely.
Right.
There's so many ways that we can make this game fun, that we can use paintball guns to play games that are great. Do I think that paintball's done evolving? No, I think that there's room for a mag-fed league. I think people would see a mag-fed and go, oh, that's closer to what I see on TV and movies. I can relate to that. Oh, he's down to one clip. One clip's not 140 balls. One clip is that 12 paintballs. I think doing the reloads, seeing things like that, there's a huge room for mag-fed to be all sorts of fun. Like video games, to show it overhead, show objectives, show where other people are, show what, to basically gamify it in new and cool ways. We've barely scratched the surface. With digital, it's so much fun because you can do all these things, but with paintball, it's real. You get to run around, you get to stub your toe, you get to dive over something, you get to be that movie star in those movies you've seen and exceed your expectations or fall so much short of them because you have no idea, because paintball puts some of that fear back in it. That a friend of mine worked in paintball at a paint magazine called Paint, P8NT, but he'd never played, which was funny because most of the guys there had played at the highest levels. So he came out and he played a practice with us. And he literally played in the back home, but it was a pro level practice against Bad Company at the time. And he played at the back center. There was literally a guy in his bunker with him the whole game. And afterwards, he's like, I asked him, I was like, what was it like? He was like, scary. I was like, what do you mean scary? I was like, there's literally, he's like, and lonely. I was like, how could it be lonely? There was somebody you could touch on your team. He's like, dude, I have never felt more alone, more scared, didn't know what was going on. He had no idea that when someone starts shooting you, you duck, you see less. It looks so easy from a distance because you get to see more of the field. One of the hardest parts in paintball is sticking your full head out where it can get shot and seeing what's going on.
No, I want you to keep sticking your head out where you get shot. That's the best. Those are the best slow-mo clips ever.
But it's, and get your head out of the sand, go play it, go try something different, try ICPL, go play NXL, go play local leagues, go play MagFed, go play Pump, go play stock class. There are so many ways we can make this game fun. One of the games that I want to come back is Billy Ball. It was one ball every 2 seconds. Bang, 1, 2, bang. Somebody can run really far in that distance.
So like the guns had a restriction on the board or something?
Yep, exactly. People ran everywhere.
I'm a big boy. Give me 2 seconds. I can go bunker to bunker.
Exactly.
Good.
Exactly. And not just that, but someone's coming to get you, you might run away. Because they better shoot that ball. So that, like I said, we've barely scratched the surface of what we can do. The gun is not the game, but the gun can let us play so many games and we can find so many ways to enjoy it.
How would you feel if Tom Cole added more ICPL events to the calendar with your already busy year?
I love playing ICPLs. I try and play lots of different things. I never know. It's all about whether we can trick these hooligans into going and playing. Farside has evolved. Like when Farside started a couple years ago, it was all guys. When Farside restarted with this modern mechanical era, it was all guys that I used to play with, basically. I think we had one guy I hadn't played with before, Jake Dixon. Everybody else was somebody that I'd played with at some point. So that was really cool. Now there are a lot of these guys I haven't played with. I'm getting to play with Corey Field. Corey's the man. It's awesome. He's played paintball almost as long as I have. And so it's cool to be on the same team as different guys again. It's neat for them to get to play as Farside for me because I have so much history with this team. So I don't know what it will bring if we add more, if we take away more, if we change it, but paintball evolves. It changes. Enjoy the change.
Awesome. Thank you.